At Christmas dinner, my daughter watched every single one of her cousins unwrap iPhones, gold bracelets, and thick envelopes of cash. One by one, her grandmother handed out the gifts, beaming with pride, smiling, calling each child my sweet baby or my perfect angel. And then she moved on, just like that. No box, no envelope, no smile for my daughter. Ariel sat quietly, eyes darting between the glittering gifts and her empty plate. She was trying to smile, but I saw it. That flicker of confusion, the hurt behind her practiced expression. I leaned toward my husband and whispered, "She skipped her. She actually skipped her." He touched my arm and whispered back, "Just stay calm." I felt heat rising in my chest, my fists clenched under the table. I glanced at my daughter. Her face was pale. Her mouth had gone tight, her fingers tugging at the hem of her dress. Then Judith, my mother-in-law, finally said it, loud enough for everyone to hear. "She's not blood." That's when it happened. Ariel stood up. No tears, no tantrum. She reached under the table, pulled out a small box wrapped in silver paper, and walked it calmly over to Judith. I was frozen. Everyone was. You could hear silverware clinking back onto plates. Conversation stopped. She placed the gift in front of her grandmother and said in a clear voice, "Grandpa said to open this if you ever ignored me again." Judith raised an eyebrow. She looked around the table like she was waiting for someone to step in and end the joke. No one did. Ariel didn't flinch. She just stood there, waiting. Judith narrowed her eyes, tore off the wrapping paper, and lifted the lid. Inside was a sealed envelope and a small black USB. Her fingers trembled. "What is this?" she asked sharply. My husband looked confused. "What is it, Mom?" Ariel sat down next to me, calm, still. But her hands were shaking. Judith stared at the envelope like it was ticking. Then she peeled it open. Whatever was written in that letter, whatever was on that USB, it made her face go white. And then she screamed. Right there, at the table. She screamed like she'd seen a ghost. Everyone stared, forks dropped. My heart pounded. What was in that box? That box my 11-year-old daughter had been saving all year, waiting, just in case. She was ignored again. What did Grandpa Joe leave behind before he died? And how did a little girl manage to change everything in one sentence? It was our first Christmas as a blended family, and I wanted it to be perfect. I had spent weeks planning everything. Table settings, matching pajamas, custom ornaments with every grandkid's name, even the playlist. It was my way of trying to make everyone feel connected, like we belonged to each other, like a real family. I married Ethan less than 2 years ago. He's quiet, thoughtful, dependable. The kind of man who always holds the door, never forgets a birthday, and double checks if the oven is off before bed. He's also Judith's only child. My daughter Ariel is from my first marriage. She's 11. Funny, strong-willed, sharper than people expect. She reads people. She notices when things are unfair, when someone gets left out, when an adult lies to keep things polite. I knew this Christmas was going to be hard for her. Last year was the last one she had with Grandpa Joe, Ethan's father. He died of a heart attack 8 months ago. He was the only one from that side of the family who never made Ariel feel like she was temporary. He used to call her his girl. He came to her school play. He sent her letters with corny jokes and $5 bills. When she got the flu last winter, he sat next to her on the couch with a thermometer and cartoons. His absence still hurt, especially for Ariel. Judith, on the other hand, had always kept her distance. She was polite but detached. She used phrases like "your daughter" instead of using her name. She complimented Ariel's report cards like you would a stranger's child. Nothing mean, just cold. Like Ariel was someone she was required to tolerate. Still, I told myself this Christmas would be different. I had hoped that with Grandpa Joe gone, maybe Judith would soften. Maybe she would realize how important it was to bring us all in closer. Maybe she would finally see Ariel as family. When we arrived that afternoon, the house was glowing. Judith always did holidays big, gold-trimmed tablecloths, white and red garlands, fancy name tags at every seat, a huge spruce tree in the corner that looked straight out of a catalog. Ariel wore the dress I bought her, a navy blue velvet with pearl buttons. She had curled the ends of her hair that morning and practiced saying thank you in advance, just in case she got something unexpected. She still believed in the magic of the day. I could see it in the way she kept sneaking glances at the stack of presents under the tree. I wanted so badly for that belief to last. Judith greeted us with air kisses and the same line she always used when she saw Ariel. "Look how much you've grown." No hug, no warmth, just enough formality to keep up appearances. The rest of the family trickled in. Ethan's nieces and nephews, all younger than Ariel, his cousins, Judith's sister. The dining room swelled with voices and clinking glasses, and for a little while, it felt okay. Normal. Dinner was loud and beautiful. Candles flickered, plates were passed around. Ariel laughed at a joke from Ethan's nephew and told her own about Santa getting stuck in the chimney. I relaxed, thinking maybe things would be fine, until dessert came. That's when Judith stood up and cleared her throat. She had placed small wrapped boxes and envelopes beside each of the grandkids' seats, 6 of them. She walked from child to child, calling each one by name, complimenting their schoolwork, their piano lessons, their latest sports trophies. Every single one received a new iPhone, a delicate gold bracelet, and an envelope filled with cash. Every single one, except Ariel. When she skipped over her seat, my first thought was maybe she forgot. Maybe she left it in another room or just missed a step. I looked at Ethan. He was watching his mother closely, but he said nothing. Then Ariel turned toward me. Her eyes asked the question her voice didn't dare speak. I looked back at Judith, trying to give her the benefit of the doubt one last time. She glanced down, saw Ariel's empty spot, and said flatly, "She's not blood." The room fell quiet. Ethan put a hand on my arm. "Just stay calm," he whispered. But something had broken in that moment. I could feel it, not just in me, in Ariel. She sat so still. Her eyes didn't well up. She didn't run. She just breathed once, slowly, then reached down under the table and pulled out the box, the one she had brought herself. I wish I could say I spoke up right away, that I stood up and said something bold or defiant, but I didn't. I sat there, frozen, trying to process what had just happened. My daughter had been publicly, intentionally excluded, and everyone saw it. Judith's voice echoed in my head. "She's not blood." It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an oversight. It was deliberate. She wanted to make a point. Across the table, Ariel was still. Too still. She didn't reach for her fork. She didn't blink. Her posture was perfect, shoulders straight, hands folded in her lap. The only sign of her pain was the way her jaw clenched, just slightly, like she was forcing herself not to cry. Around us, the silence thickened. Ethan's sister shifted uncomfortably. One of the younger cousins whispered to his mom, asking why Ariel didn't get a gift. Nobody answered him. I felt heat rise to my cheeks, not just anger, shame. Shame that I had brought my daughter here hoping to find warmth. Shame that I had sat through so many holidays pretending everything was okay. Shame that I had married into a family where someone could look my child in the face and decide she was unworthy. I turned to Ethan. "Say something," I whispered. He looked at me with helpless eyes. "I didn't know she was going to do this," he said under his breath. "Just stay calm." "Calm?" I hissed. "She humiliated her." Ethan looked down. His silence was loud, and I realized then that his loyalty, at least in this moment, wasn't with us. I looked back at Judith. She was sipping her wine, unmoved, as if skipping over Ariel was as routine as passing the mashed potatoes. Her face didn't show a flicker of doubt. I opened my mouth to speak, to defend my daughter, but before I could, Ariel moved. She didn't run from the room. She didn't cry. Instead, she slowly reached under the table and pulled out a small silver-wrapped box. I had no idea she had brought it. I watched her place it on the table next to her untouched dessert, and then, without a word, she stood up. Every eye turned to her. The room went completely still. Even Judith looked curious now, her head slightly tilted as Ariel walked around the table, holding that little box in both hands. She stopped in front of Judith and placed the box carefully on her plate. "Grandpa said to open this if you ever ignored me again," she said, clear and steady. Judith raised an eyebrow. "What?" "He said to give you this if you ever made me feel like I didn't belong," Ariel said. Her voice didn't shake. There was no anger in it, no drama, just truth. I stood slowly, but I didn't move toward them. I was in awe. My daughter wasn't just standing up for herself. She was doing it with more grace and strength than most adults I knew. Judith scoffed. "What on earth is this, a prank?" "No," Ariel replied. "It's a message. He told me to save it for the right moment." Judith looked at Ethan. "You knew about this." He shook his head. Number I didn't. Judith huffed, clearly annoyed at the attention, but curiosity got the better of her. She peeled the wrapping off with sharp fingers and opened the box. Inside was a plain white envelope and a small black USB drive. Nothing else. No bow, no decoration, just that. Judith picked up the envelope and opened it. She pulled out a folded letter and began reading. Her eyes narrowed, her lips pressed tight. Her hand trembled slightly. "What is it?" Ethan asked. She didn't answer. Ethan took the USB and plugged it into his laptop at the side table. A video file appeared. Without waiting for permission, he clicked it. The screen lit up with a video of Joe. Grandpa Joe, sitting in his favorite recliner, wearing one of his worn flannel shirts. He looked tired, but his eyes were kind, focused, serious. "If you're watching this," he said, "then I'm gone. And Judith, I'm guessing you did what I asked you not to do. You made that little girl feel like she wasn't part of this family." The room held its breath. He looked straight into the camera. "Ariel is my granddaughter, not by blood, by choice. And that matters more. I set something aside for the kids. But if you ever treat her like she's invisible again, then it all goes to her. Everything." Judith's face turned white. Joe smiled gently in the video. "I trust you'll do the right thing, even now." Then the screen went black, and Judith screamed. After Judith screamed, the room seemed to split into two versions of itself. On one side, everyone frozen in stunned silence, watching her unravel. On the other, my daughter, sitting calmly at the end of the table like none of it touched her. Her composure didn't crack. Her hands stayed folded in her lap. Her shoulders didn't slump. I was still standing, staring at her, trying to understand how she had planned this, how she had known, how she had waited. Judith clutched the letter in one hand and pointed at Ariel with the other. "This is manipulation. This is disgusting," she said. "You're using a dead man to guilt me. Shame on you." Ethan's voice broke through. "He recorded that before he passed, Mom. It's dated. You know it's real." She turned on him. "So you're just fine with this? You're letting this little girl hold the entire family hostage?" "She's not holding anyone hostage," Ethan said, finally raising his voice. "You made her feel unwanted in front of everyone. Dad saw this coming. He tried to protect her in the only way he could." Judith looked around, expecting someone to back her up, but no one said a word. Even her sister was silent, staring at the USB drive like it had detonated in the center of the room. Ariel turned to me and whispered, "Can we go home now?" I knelt beside her and touched her hand. "Just one question first," I said. "How did you know she'd do this?" Ariel looked away from me and fixed her eyes on the fireplace across the room. "Grandpa told me last Christmas that if he wasn't here next year, I needed to be ready. He said people change when they lose someone, that some people get kinder, and some just get worse." She reached into her purse and pulled out a second folded piece of paper. "He gave this to me. Told me to only read it if I started to think I didn't belong." I opened it slowly. His handwriting was jagged and fading, but clear. "Ariel, if you ever feel like they've forgotten who you are to me, I need you to remember who you are to yourself. You are brave. You are loved. You belong, even when they don't act like it. I'm proud of you, and I've made sure you're protected. You don't have to be silent to be strong. Grandpa Joe." I blinked back tears and kissed the top of her head. Then something changed across the room. Ethan walked over to his mother. "You need to apologize to her," he said. "Not for Dad, for yourself. You need to understand how wrong this was." Judith's face tightened. "Number, I won't apologize for being honest." "She's a child," he said. "You just told a child she wasn't good enough because of blood." Judith stood, and her chair screeched back across the hardwood floor. "Then I guess I'm done pretending," she snapped. "If that makes me the villain, fine, I'll be the villain." She stormed out of the room, her heels clicking hard against the floor. The door to her study slammed shut behind her. Nobody followed. The remaining guests slowly began clearing their plates, some in silence, some whispering to each other. The cousin brought Ariel a slice of cake and quietly said, "That was pretty brave." Ariel smiled politely, but her appetite was gone. Ethan came over and rested his hand on my shoulder. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't know she would take it this far." "You've known what she's capable of for years," I said. "You just never thought she'd do it in front of witnesses." He looked at the floor and nodded. That night, in the car, Ariel leaned her head against the window and said, "I don't feel sad. I thought I would, but I feel okay." I looked at her in the rearview mirror. "You handled yourself with more grace than any adult in that room." She shrugged. "I didn't want to hurt her. I just didn't want to feel invisible anymore." "You never were," I said. "Not to the people who matter." As we pulled into our driveway, the lights from inside our house glowed through the windows. I realized then this wasn't just a turning point for Ariel. It was one for me, too. We had spent too long trying to be accepted into a place that only ever gave us half-open doors. But Ariel had walked through that house with her head high. She had handed a box across the table and told the truth, not with anger, not with shame, with courage. And now, things would never be the same again. The next morning, Ethan and I sat at the kitchen table in silence, coffee growing cold in our mugs. Ariel was still asleep, curled in the blankets she had dragged to the couch, after insisting she wanted to sleep near the tree. Neither of us had spoken much since we got home. There was too much to process. Judith's words, Ariel's strength, the video from Grandpa Joe. I finally said what had been burning in my chest since last night. She planned for this, not to make a scene, to protect herself. You saw how calm she was. She didn't go there hoping for a fight. She just didn't want to be hurt again. Ethan nodded slowly. I keep replaying Dad's words. He knew. He really knew what she would do. I pulled the folded letter from my purse and read it again. Joe's handwriting shook a little, like he had written it on a bad day, but the message was firm. Ariel is my family. Period. If you can't see that, then the things I've worked for will go to the one who could. Below that was a copy of a notarized document, a copy that Joe had placed in the same envelope. He had revised his estate plan before he passed. In the presence of 2 witnesses, he had signed over the educational trust originally meant to be split between the grandkids. If Judith or any member of the family intentionally excluded Ariel from an equal gift or inheritance, the full amount would default solely to her. It wasn't just symbolic, it was enforceable. Ethan had scanned the document, checked the dates, the signatures. It was legitimate and binding. He had tried to call his mother that morning. No answer. By noon, Judith finally sent a message, not to me, not to Ariel. She sent it to Ethan, a short text that read, "I hope you're happy. She's yours now." I read the message and felt a wave of something I hadn't expected. Relief. I wasn't interested in Judith's approval anymore. I didn't care about polite invitations or family dinners where Ariel was treated like an accessory. The spell had broken. Ariel came into the kitchen, still in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Is Grandma mad?" she asked. I knelt beside her. "She's upset, but not because you did anything wrong. She's upset because she got caught showing everyone who she really is." Ariel looked down, thoughtful. "Does this mean we don't go there anymore?" I paused. "It means we don't go anywhere we're not respected. That's something I should have taught you sooner." She nodded and sat on my lap, quiet for a long time. Then she whispered, "Grandpa really loved me." "He did," I said, "enough to protect you even when he couldn't be here." Later that week, a letter arrived by certified mail. It was from Joe's lawyer. Inside was an official copy of the trust document, along with a short note Joe had left specifically for Ariel. It read, "If you're holding this, it means someone failed you. I'm sorry for that. But I want you to know I saw you. I loved you, and I believed in you more than I can say. You are mine, Ariel. Always, in the only way that ever mattered. I hope this gift reminds you that you belong, no matter who tries to tell you otherwise. Love, Grandpa." Ariel read the letter once, then again. She held it against her chest, folded it gently, and placed it in the small jewelry box Joe had given her the Christmas before. She didn't ask about the money. She didn't gloat. She didn't even smile. She just stood a little taller. Word spread quickly through the family. Some tried to stay neutral. A few quietly reached out to say they were sorry, but most stayed silent. Judith never apologized. Instead, she sent a final message through Ethan that the family would be keeping things traditional going forward. We took that as permission to step away. Christmas had started with rejection, but it ended with clarity. Ariel didn't just walk away from the table with her dignity intact. She walked away with proof that someone had loved her deeply, fiercely, and without hesitation. She had taken her place not by force, but by truth. And in doing so, she taught me something I'll never forget. Love is not defined by blood. It is defined by action. That Christmas changed everything, not because of the money, not because of the legal documents, not even because of the video that made Judith scream and storm away from her own dining room. It changed because of what Ariel did, because of what she chose not to accept. Children learn by watching, and for years Ariel had watched me shrink myself in the presence of people who saw us as less. I had tried to smooth things over, to keep the peace, to believe that politeness could replace love. I told myself that if I just stayed quiet long enough, things would get better. But Ariel had been watching, and instead of copying that, she did something I hadn't. She stood up. She stood up when it mattered most. She defended herself without raising her voice. She delivered truth without cruelty. She refused to accept invisibility as normal. That night, after everything calmed down, I watched her sleep on the couch, the soft glow of Christmas lights flickering across her face. I realized she would carry that moment with her forever, not as trauma, as clarity. She would never again doubt her place in this world. When school started back after winter break, her teachers noticed something different. She raised her hand more. She volunteered for the debate team. She offered to read her writing aloud in front of the class. The girl who had once asked me quietly in the car if it was okay to correct a teacher was now helping classmates speak up for themselves. Ethan and I had some hard conversations after that day, honest ones. He admitted that he had grown up deferring to his mother's judgment without question, that her approval had always been his measuring stick. But seeing Ariel sit at that table, carrying herself with more integrity than most adults, broke something open in him too. He began therapy. We started couples counseling, and for the first time, he asked what I needed, not just what would keep the peace. Judith didn't speak to us for several months. She didn't call on Ariel's birthday. She didn't send a card. And I'm not sure if she ever will again. But silence is better than harm. And Ariel? She thrived in that silence. Without the weight of needing to be accepted, she stopped seeking it. She found other places to belong. She joined a community theater group. She started writing letters to children in shelters as part of a volunteer project. She began to understand something I hadn't known how to teach her, that being chosen is nice, but choosing yourself is powerful. One Saturday afternoon, I found her in her room going through a box of old photos. She held up a picture of her and Grandpa Joe, sitting side by side on a porch swing, both of them holding ice cream cones. She smiled. He always made me feel like I was exactly who I was supposed to be. You are, I said, and you don't need anyone's permission to keep being that. She tucked the photo into a frame on her desk. I think I'm ready to visit his grave again. We drove there that weekend. She carried fresh flowers. We stood quietly for a few minutes before she whispered, "I did what you told me, Grandpa." I didn't let her erase me. That was all she needed to say. Some people measure holidays by the number of gifts under the tree. That year, we measured it by the strength it took to unwrap truth. I look back on that Christmas with a strange mix of pain and pride. It wasn't the holiday I planned. It wasn't warm or joyful or easy, but it was real. It revealed everything we needed to see, and it gave Ariel something no wrapped gift ever could, a moment of absolute self-worth. She didn't need to raise her voice. She didn't need to be loud. She just needed to be seen, and she made sure that she was. That's what I carry with me now, not the conflict, not Judith's reaction, not even Joe's will. What I remember is the way an 11-year-old girl, surrounded by glittering gifts and cold glances, stood up and told the truth. What I remember is the way she taught a room full of adults what family actually means. Not blood, not obligation, love. Love that shows up. Love that protects. Love that doesn't ask you to prove yourself first. That was the gift she walked away with, and it was the only one that mattered. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of someone you love or something you've lived through, I want you to know you're not alone. There are children like Ariel everywhere, waiting to be seen. There are families trying to heal and voices trying to be heard. And sometimes all it takes is one moment of truth to change everything. If you believe in stories that speak up for the overlooked, the underestimated, and the quietly brave, please like this video so more people can hear it. Share it with someone who might need to know their worth isn't defined by blood or approval. And comment below. Tell me your story. Have you ever had to stand up for someone you love or for yourself? And if you want more stories like this, real, raw, and full of heart, subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell so you don't miss what's next, because here, every voice matters, and some of the smallest voices carry the strongest truth. Thank you for watching. I see you, and I'm glad you're here.